Hello, I'm John Cunningham, and welcome to another episode of the RedChip Money Report. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Today's show features interviews with executives of two public companies. First up is Reviva Pharmaceuticals, stock symbol RVPH on the NASDAQ. Reviva is a clinical stage pharma company developing therapies that seek to address unmet medical needs in the areas of the central nervous system, cardiovascular, metabolic, and inflammatory diseases. The company has a phase 3 study in acute schizophrenia patients underway, and the FDA has granted orphan designation for Reviva's drug candidate for the treatment of heart disease. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Next up is Everything Blockchain, stock symbol EBZT on the OTC. Everything Blockchain provides comprehensive solutions using blockchain technologies and decentralized processing. Revenues for its most recently reported quarter surpassed $1.8 million, up sequentially from under $400,000 in the previous quarter. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Now, before we get to the first interview, our quote of the week. It comes from the book Small Stocks, Big Money. Get to know management, look for intelligence, a high level of integrity, strong communication skills, and make sure they understand their products and business well. This quote comes from Byron Roth, CEO of Roth Capital, featured in Chapter 7 of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now let's get started with our first interview today with Reviva Pharmaceuticals.
We're here today, back in the studio with Dr. Laxminarayan Bhat, the CEO, founder, and formulator of two novel molecules, trading on NASDAQ under the ticker RVPH, Reviva Pharmaceuticals. Dr. Bhat, welcome back.
Thanks for having me here, Todd.
It's always a pleasure, and it's very pleasant that since the last meeting back in the fall, the stock's nearly doubled in price, showing a positive trend. Do you think the market's starting to recognize some of your phase 3 schizophrenia trial progress?
I believe so, and there are a couple of things I believe that impacted our recent surge in market cap. We are making good progress with our phase 3 study in schizophrenia, and we are communicating that one periodically to our investors. And then especially recent announcement of our drug-drug interaction safety data, I believe the investors recognize that potential benefit to patients with the data. And then also we have strengthened our cash position. We raised additional capital a few months back that was participated by insiders as well as institutional investors. I believe that has impacted as well the positive development in the market cap.
Exciting, especially, we want to congratulate you regarding the safety data. I think your phase 2 on 234 patients spoke very highly to both efficacy and safety data with some of the lowest patient dropout records in the history of essential nervous system drugs. So what do you think the FDA might view this new data as? How can it be a differentiator in your drug versus the current standard of care?
The schizophrenia treatment is, in many patients, is a lifelong treatment. To be compliant with the treatment, the patients, the safety is very important. So besides efficacy, safety of a drug play a critical role in the drug compliance. So the biggest unmet need in the treatment of schizophrenia is not just efficacy, but also safety, equally important. We believe we fill in that gap because our drug, based on the data generated prior to starting the phase 3 study in about 300 patients, our drug has demonstrated good efficacy and then safety profile compared to other widely used standard of care. And then recent the disclosed drug-drug interaction data that further supports the safety data already generated in the large phase 2 study. Just to give you a fact about how serious is safety in schizophrenia patients. So especially the drug-drug interaction, as we announced in our press release, about 25% of the antipsychotics currently in the market are known to cause drug-drug interaction. Around 50% of the drugs currently in the market are also known to cause drug-drug interaction. Most importantly, majority of schizophrenia patients, they are on multiple medications because they suffer from multiple disorders. So having clean safety profile for a new drug to be approved, that is, I believe, the most desired treatment along with the efficacy. So these two combination, we believe, our drug bring on table, and then this benefits patients.
Yeah, without question, this is exciting data, and everyone, I think, in this audience has some history of mental health between family, friends, coworkers, and a lot of the drugs, they work and they help. That's why they got through the FDA process, but clearly there are side effects, sometimes substantial. We went over a few in your last interview with hypothyroidism and weight gain, dyslipidemia, and right now you could say you haven't had these in the patients to date that you've reviewed the data from phase 2.
The onset of the schizophrenia in many patients, it's an early stage teenage. So when the drug-induced side effects, when these patients take a couple of months to a year, so rest of their life, they have to take these medications. So for drug-induced side effects, we believe our drug not only addresses the efficacy, but also it can address to a great extent some of the side effects what we have seen with the current standard of care. That's the advantage, is the combination of efficacy and then safety. That is the biggest unmet need. I believe our drug is going to address that based on the data generated to date.
Well, a lot of anticipation. And last time we spoke, you mentioned looking for about mid-2023. Are you still on track? How's this phase 3 trial going?
We are making good progress. We are on schedule as we promised to our shareholders. Mid of this year, we promised we will give the top line data. Based on the progress made to date, I'm very optimistic that we will be able to give top line data sometime mid of this year.
Yeah, I noticed we spoke last time about Karuna Therapeutics, and they are almost a year ahead of you, I guess, and they had their data last summer, which had a profound impact on the market for them. It increased their valuation by approximately $3 billion, and they're continuing phase 3 and hope to have an NDA filed in the near term. Could this be the potential for Reviva and those out there looking for opportunity? Sometimes this transition between phase 2 data, which is important, phase 3 data often gets more market recognition, especially in the pivotal trial. Tell us a little bit more about what your expectations are. Can you file the NDA based on some of this data, or more studies, or what's the plan here?
Sure. The first of all, you mentioned market response to Karuna Therapeutics data. I believe certainly that's a good response, and then as anticipated, because schizophrenia market is very large, huge unmet need. Any new drug currently in development with positive data, one can anticipate that kind of market response. We believe in next about 5 months' time, when we have top line data, if our data is positive, we believe market would respond in a similar way for Reviva as well. Now coming to the Karuna Therapeutics drug, their data, again, I don't want to make specific comment about the data, but we believe based on the public information, our drug has shown robust efficacy, and then not only have the top line data But the data generated today that clearly indicates, especially one should look for, besides the top line data, we call in medical term the secondary endpoints evaluated in the clinical trial, that to a great extent reflective of how fast patient can recover from this symptom. And schizophrenia is not a single disease. So besides the top line data, if the drug shows good efficacy on secondary endpoints, that is the reflective of potential treatment benefit and faster recovery and then leading to remission. I believe we have demonstrated in the phase 2 study. So only our phase 3 study that we anticipate in the next 4 to 5 months that will reaffirm the data what we already generated. So we believe based on that positive note, the market cap should have, similar to what you already mentioned, Karuna Therapeutics market cap on the top line data. We anticipate in similar line for our company as well.
I believe wholeheartedly in you, Dr. Bhatt. I know you're very humble, and you've designed this drug. You're seeing every day how it affects patients. Hopefully you're in line with phase 2, and I have very high expectations for your ability to change lives with this drug.
We strongly believe, our drug, brilaroxazine, has the ability to make difference in patients' life with the profile, clinical profile, what we have seen so far.
And this could potentially not just be for schizophrenia, right? There are other indications that have potential. Maybe you can touch briefly on that.
Some of the drugs, antipsychotics drugs currently in the market, approved for additional indications, because often in neuropsychiatric space, like besides schizophrenia, depression, bipolar, and ADHD, they are, to some extent, they are closely related or overlapping symptoms. So we believe, based on the clinical pharmacology profile of our drug, and then safety data, and then efficacy for primary endpoint and secondary endpoints generated, we believe our drug can be readily extended for additional indications, much larger market potential, such as major depressive disorder and ADHD. So everything depends on the top line data, what we're anticipating, because that will give much more information, clinical information in a larger patient population. Based on that, we will be able to take a right decision accordingly, extend the therapeutic benefit, this drug to additional indications.
Wonderful. I know in phase 2, you actually had incredible safety data and also reception from patients. Even the placebo had a higher dropout rate than your drug, somewhere in 12 to 13% dropout rate. Long-term dropout rates, where do they come in for the standard of care, the approved drugs right now?
If you look at the historical data for widely used standard of care, the dropout rates will be anywhere around 30 to 50% in similar trial. Our drug has shown around 12 to 14% dropout. So that's really, to my knowledge, it is superior and then remarkable profile compared to any other approved drugs currently in the market. So we are, as I mentioned before, we are very optimistic that in the phase 3 data will be in the similar line, because our phase 3 study design essentially similar to the large study what we already successfully completed. That's the kind of confidence leading to the positive outcome what we are anticipating.
Wonderful. And I know your stock advanced to around $100 million valuation. I am going to touch on safety one last time. Just to put this in perspective, Karuna received around $800 million investment from a couple of top banks, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, at a north of a $7 billion valuation, and pretty close in phase to you. You're both in phase 3. You're both yet to have an approved drug. And both are showing promising data. So clearly there's an appetite from the market. I have one last safety question. On the drug-drug interaction data, would you expect from all the comparisons out there that anybody has done as well as your drug to date? that's approved drugs out there?
Yeah, if you look at approved antipsychotics, I'm talking about widely used drugs. See, known to cause various side effects. Sometimes these side effects are irreversible in many patients, such as weight gain leading to obesity and drug-induced diabetes, dyslipidemia. So we haven't seen this one in our phase 2 study. In similar trial, some of these widely used drugs have shown that one. That's the good comfort level to predict that. So in the phase 3 study as well, because trial design is similar. So similar data, what we already generated, or even better data, we will be able to generate. That's our expectation. That should have a significant impact on the drug compliance. Of course, we have good safety, efficacy profile as well. The combination of this one should translate very well in patients' overall treatment outcome.
Excellent. And I know from my perspective, you check all the boxes. Your $100 million valuation versus several competitors that are in the multi-billion, and you're performing at least at those data levels potentially better. On safety, it looks like you've got a better history, especially with this new revelation in December on the drug-drug interaction data. So to me, that's the value of the opportunity. In a nutshell, you're going to probably get some feedback from the FDA in the summer. I certainly am behind this idea of you advancing and getting recognized by the FDA as a safe, efficacious drug. The more patients you prove this on, obviously, the better, and phase 3 is the key here. So we are anticipating these data points in just a few months, 5 months. That's not long. Thanks again for sharing the story with our audience today.
Thank you.
Now, to get more information on Reviva Pharmaceuticals, visit rvphinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Reviva. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can order Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip's CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon for just $18. Now let's move on to our next interview today with Everything Blockchain.
Hello, today we have Tony Jennings, CEO of Everything Blockchain, with us here in the studio. Tony, welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Everything Blockchain, revolutionizing database technology using proprietary blockchain technologies. Let's start with a brief overview of Everything Blockchain and its product portfolio.
What we're doing at Everything Blockchain is blending database security with blockchain with zero trust data security to really develop disruptive new ways to store data, manage data, and protect data. We do that through 3 lines of business today. We do that through EB Advise, EB Build, EB Control, and I'll just talk to you for a second about each one of those. EB Advise, as the name implies, is our advisory service. It's where customers will come to us potentially with a use case or a business problem that they feel like blockchain can solve. It will sort of be their blockchain Sherpa to help them get to a solution, help them understand where the blockchain, and particularly our blockchain, will help them solve their problem. And we're really not looking to build project-based revenue out of this. What we're really looking to do, and we're very picky with our EB Advised projects, what we're really looking to do is help customers solve a problem that ultimately lead to recurring revenue for us on the back end. So that's what we want to be as a company, is really be all about recurring revenues and things of this nature. We are a technology company after all. So that's EB Advise. EB Build is our proprietary patent-pending blockchain platform. Again, it's a very different type of a blockchain where it's private, highly secure, very performant, very resilient. So very different than your typical blockchains that you see out there. Again, focused on problems that really exist in very large businesses that have very large data sets and have data that really needs to be kept secure in a self-healing sort of a blockchain at very large scale. The business model there, quite frankly, is as you would expect from a software company: subscription fees, transaction fees, revenue share, and of course, a big go-to-market element for us will be technology licensing to other technology companies that may need this to be an element of their solutions as well. Finally, we have EB Control. That is our patented now zero trust data protection solution. It really exists to help people share data outside of their secure network and know that I can absolutely control that data no matter where it goes forever. If I send you a file, for instance, it's going to verify that you are Craig. It's going to know that you are in the right location because I might have decided to geofence your data. It's going to decide if you're in an authorized timeline. I might have said, hey, you've got a week or 2 weeks or a month to look at this. Then you won't be able to view it anymore. Or I might have decided yesterday that I want to revoke your access in real time. And then finally, of course, we can invoke data rights management, meaning that I can ask you, Craig, I can enforce data rights management on you in such a way that you can read it only, but you can't forward it, copy it, print it, or save it. So that's really what EB Control is all about. And again, we've taken those elements, those business units in a whole to really be able to come up with this brand new way to store data, protect data, and manage data as well.
Tony, you've really captured my attention and I think our audience's attention with that description of what everything blockchain does. Can we concretize it a little bit? Give us an example, maybe a case study of one of your customers and how you serve them.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. As you can imagine, the use cases for this are endless. Any application today that is using a traditional database to store data is a candidate for us to go in and displace, particularly when the data stored in that database needs to be secure, it needs to be tamper-proof, it needs to be immutable. Let me give you a specific use case, though, I think that you'll find interesting in the net zero space. So imagine having an energy company that obviously they're all concerned about getting to net zero over the next decade or so. Imagine continuing to develop oil, develop energy, and you have production equipment in the field where you have sensors that are basically looking for and measuring greenhouse gases that are coming off that production equipment, right? So if you need to prove that you're getting to net zero, if you've got regulatory bodies that you've got to report to, then you need a couple things to happen. One is you really like that data to be stored in a way that can be proven to be tamper-proof. It's immutable. It can't be changed. So you can prove that it actually did come from where you say it's going to come from, and it hasn't been tampered with, right? So we'll use the case again of these production wells where you have IoT devices that are operating in real time and throwing a heck of a lot of data off of. A traditional blockchain, for instance, you want to store it in that blockchain because, again, the data, you know the data that goes in there, you can prove that it's not been tampered with. But the problem with using blockchain traditionally is that it's not performant. It moves very slow. You're adding blocks in minutes instead of adding blocks in milliseconds like we do. So we're operating really in near real time. And so imagine being able to take data off of an IoT device across this production equipment, shove it into a database, in this case, a blockchain database, and then when it comes time to report kind of where you're really at, when it comes time to forecast the sort of emissions you'll have off of a new production rigs and things of this nature, you have a reliable way to basically go to the regulatory bodies to prove to your shareholders, to show others that the data is real and hasn't been tampered with, and is something that can be relied on.
It's truly zero trust, and show me something that we can rely on, and you guys are attacking that problem.
That's what it's all about. When we talk about a new way to store data, manage data, and protect data, that's exactly what we're talking about. Being able to do it at scale with this sort of security, immutability, and resiliency.
I'm just wondering, how big is the market opportunity you're addressing?
That's an interesting question, and you can slice and dice that several ways. When I put my investor hat, I'm thinking about people, I'm thinking about markets, I'm thinking about products. So on the market side, I want to know there's a big addressable market. So I can say, yeah, we're going after the blockchain market, and yeah, it's maybe 4 or 5 billion in size today based on who you talk to and what you read. But I would say that if we really identify ourselves more with the next generation database company. So if I'm going to go and disrupt the database space, now I'm talking about $100 to $150 billion market. So what, 20x the size of the blockchain market? So Any way you slice it and dice it, we also do the data protection. That's another $25 billion. So any way you slice it and dice it, what I want investors and people interested in the company to understand is this is a huge addressable market for us.
Now, it's a huge addressable market. It's also somewhat new, and you're trying new things, I'm sure, here. You've got some proof of concept programs underway, both with your current customers and with potential customers.
Yes.
Tell us about some of that.
Yeah, sure. So any company that's bringing new, exciting technology to the market, obviously one of the first things you want to do is you've got to establish credibility in the market, which typically means I've got to get reference customers. I call them lighthouse customers. You've got to get those customers so that they can kind of sing your praises. When you have those successes, they're going to tell their friends. They're going to work with my marketing department, things like that. We're fortunate in this case. Oftentimes, when you bring in new technology to market, you typically do lighthouse sorts of engagements with smaller companies, maybe people that are willing to, engage, be early adopters, for instance. We're really fortunate in this particular case with everything blockchain, though, to really be doing proofs of concept and having projects early on with Fortune 100 companies, airlines, energy companies, government. So in that aspect, I feel really excited and really fortunate that we're able to do POCs that, in my experience, are kind of rather out of the ordinary for a company at this stage.
If I'm the CEO of a major company, I want my database to be safe. I don't want it being broken into. You've got these proofs of concept. You've got these current potential customers. What I want to know is, what our audience wants to know is, how do you make money out of it? How do you actually generate revenue?
Well, again, we're a technology company, plain and simple. We're a software company, so we make money off subscription fees, just like you would for any other typical software package today. Although we do have customers that want a perpetual license, kind of the old-fashioned way, where you pay a big sum up front, and then there's maintenance fees and whatnot. But typically for us, it's going to be subscription fees, number one. Depending on who the customer is, what the use case is, there could be transaction fees involved. There could be some revenue sharing going on. And ultimately, I think one of our big routes to market is going to be licensing our technology to other technology companies where they think that we can be additive, or 1 + 1 = 3. So, and I think that'll be a big revenue stream and a big channel for us as well.
Tony, this story is so interesting. I want to turn now to management. Of any company and of any small cap company, management is huge. But I would say, especially in your case, with your technology, with the newness of what you're trying to do, management matters very much. Tell us about some of the key players on your team.
Happy to do that. Obviously, we're a technology company. And so one of the first things you want to look at is, well, who are your technology leaders? Well, we're very fortunate that we have two of the best technologists on the planet. You have Brandon Hart, who is heading up our Zero Trust data protection solution, crypto expert, Zero Trust expert. Won't find a better technologist in that space on the planet. Cedric Harris is our blockchain guy. When I say our blockchain guy, though, he's a unique individual in that not only do you have to know blockchain to do what we do, you've got to be a database architect. You've got to be a network architect. There's just a number of things. You've got to probably know 10 or 11 different programming languages. So we just are fortunate we have two of the best on the planet that are heading up our technology and solutions development. Of course, business matters as well. We've got a CFO that has a ton of public company experience, which obviously matters to us, particularly as we contemplate uplisting to the NASDAQ over the next several quarters. And I'll just say, across the team in general, we've got guys that this is not their first rodeo. They've been through many, many successful exits, decades of experience both in industry and business across the team.
I see you're a very polite individual, Tony, in that you have omitted yourself. Tell us a little bit about Tony Jennings.
What is there to say? Well, I've been kind of blessed in my career. Obviously, my background is I'm an ex-Air Force captain. That's how I got my start initially in cybersecurity. Actually spent a little time in Desert Storm back when that was going on, was actually deployed to do a cyber operation in theater at that time. Then left the military with some of my military friends. We started my very first company back in 1995, a company called Wheel Group Corporation. We essentially were the first entry into what's now called the intrusion detection space. So we're the first ones there. Just spent about 3 years building that company, sold it to Cisco Systems for a very nice number, and which was great. I mean, it's kind of spoils you when you have a home run like that right out of the gates. Then I went off and raced cars for a little while. Was a professional race car driver and did pretty well at that as well. Won a lot of races, but eventually decided it was time to go back and be a tax-paying citizen again. And so since then, through my venture capital network, through my business network, et cetera, have been fortunate to be able to be a CEO of another 6 companies in addition to the very first one I did. So I've been very fortunate to be able to have that sort of experience working with great teams. You know, I'm now landed everything blockchain and probably more excited about the opportunity here than any other company I've been involved with.
For our audience, why should an investor take an interest in everything blockchain right now?
I think I can answer that pretty simply in that, again, when I put my investor hat on, and just like many in the audience, you know, I invest as well. When I'm looking at a tech company in particular, I'm looking at really 3 things. I'm looking at the team. Can the team pull it off? Have they been there before? You know, have they encountered the obstacles that inevitably pop up when you do a company like this? Then I'm looking at the market. Is there really a market for the product, or is there a problem that's big enough that you're solving that someone will scratch a check for it? That's the way I like to think about it. So, you know, is there a real problem in the market? Is it a sizable market? And then finally, of course, you've got to have technology that will solve the problem, that is differentiated with intellectual property that you can protect and that is defensible. And so those are the things I look at as an investor, and I think we have all those ingredients here at Everything Blockchain. Obviously, I feel that way, or I wouldn't be here myself.
It is a great story, Tony. Thank you for driving over here today and sharing it with us.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Now, to get more information on everything blockchain, visit EBZTinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Everything Blockchain. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip's CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy at Amazon.com for just $18. Now let's recap the companies you met today. First, you met Reviva Pharmaceuticals, stock symbol RVPH on the NASDAQ. Reviva is a well-funded Phase 3 biotech pharmaceutical company with 2 platform drug candidates discovered in-house in its pipeline. Both candidates were discovered using the company's chemical genomics-driven technology platform. They've been granted composition of matter patents in the US, Europe, and various other countries. Again, to learn more about Reviva Pharmaceuticals, visit rvphinfo.com. Then you met Everything Blockchain, stock symbol EBZT on the OTC. Everything Blockchain is diligently executing its business strategy to expedite the rollout of its core operating brands and services. They are expected to see material growth from these initiatives in the quarters ahead while achieving positive cash flow for the year. Visit EBZTinfo.com to learn more. Again, if you have any questions about any of the public companies featured on today's show, please call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile asset class. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies, so please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new exciting emerging growth companies.